Good morning. My name is Brian Heminger, and this is my 1972 Tomaso Pantera. So let me tell you a little bit about the story. So my wife and I recently retired. We moved here into Las Vegas the beginning of August, and I already had a 2020 Shelby GT350 that I brought with me. But I always had a hankering for a classic car. And there are very few classic cars that are as iconic as the Tomaso Pantera. As a matter of fact, I can remember as a young teen seeing this car advertised on the back page of Hot Rod magazine, a yellow one, and it said on the ad it was about $10,000, and I thought that was the most exotic, most expensive, crazy looking sports car I'd ever seen in my life. But that image stuck with me, and now all of these years later I finally can afford to own one. So I recently bought this. I've only had it for about 3 months now, and I bought it from a Pantera specialist over in Orange County. Shameless plug for PI Motorsports and my good friend Jerry Sackett. And like a lot of Panteras, and I think this advice comes from Jay Leno on his YouTube channel, is you don't want to buy a stock Pantera, because from the factory these cars kind of came with a lot of problems. It's an Italian car. It was built back in the early 1970s, famously with a Ford drivetrain, but it was kind of under-engineered, if I can use that term, and a lot of problems started cropping up as soon as the cars began to get driven by people. So if you're going to buy or own a Pantera, most of us that own Panteras, we either buy one that's already modified or put in the time and the money and the effort to make the necessary modifications for this to be really a drivable car. And one thing that you'll notice too about Pantera owners is every Pantera is different. Every Pantera owner does their own thing with the car. Now, in the case of this car, this is number 2811. It's been owned previously by a number of different owners. And one of the previous owners, who I've been in touch with, gave me a rundown on a lot of the things that he had done to the car. So a lot of the things that were issues for the Panteras, they're all sorted out in this car, like the cooling and the electrical. And then in addition to cooling and electrical, a lot of other modifications have been done on the car. Some of them being Willwood four-wheel disc brakes all the way around, some suspension improvements, some frame stiffening, not to mention modifications to the original engine, which of course famously is the 351 Cleveland, a real workhorse of a Ford motor with the famous ZF transaxle transmission. On this particular car, modifications have been made, like it's got fuel injection rather than carburation. It's got a cable shifter rather than just a mechanical shift. There's a mild cam has been put in the car, and some of the gearing has been changed as well. In addition to that, some other shameless plugs for PI Motorsports is the polished, larger size wheels, 17s all the way around. And in addition to that, the header and exhaust system also is a PI Motorsports edition. And Jerry there at PI Motorsports had done a lot of the work on the car, even for the previous owner. And so I bought it from Jerry, who had bought it back from the previous owner. And both of those guys have told me they'd like to buy the car back. That's, I don't know what you want to call it, but that's the grip that a Pantera gets on your soul. You know, when you love the car, when you own the car, when you drive the car, it's just such an iconic, classic car that once you have one, it's hard to get out of your system. And this one's in my system, been in my system for a long time, and I just love it. Now, driving the car, okay, so the first thing you have to remember, it's a 50-year-old car. So it doesn't drive like I've got a 2020 Shelby GT350, and that car drives like a Rolls Royce compared to this car. You gotta drive this car. You gotta put a grip on the wheel, and you gotta shift this thing into gear, and it drives hard and it drives heavy. And even with all the modifications on it, it still is a handful to drive. But that being said, for some of us, that's exactly what we want. You know, the total driving experience where I'm driving the car. The car's not telling me what to do, I'm telling it what to do. And that's one of the things that we love about it. And of course, one of the things I love about my 2020 GT350 is the manual transmission. And so that's one of the things we love about the car. But one of the things that I know has got my wife really excited about this car is everywhere we go with this car, it gets enormous attention. I can just get gassed in a gas station. I was just filling this up the other day, and a guy pulls through in a pickup truck and stops and yells out, "That's an awesome car." I was coming over here one morning to Cars and Coffee, and a guy pulled up next to me in a Corvette, and he says, "Oh, that's my dream car. I had one early in my life, and I sold it, and I wish I wouldn't have sold it. I'd love to have another one." And that's what you get actually from a lot of former Pantera owners. They wish they still had the car. So it just gets a lot of attention, whether it's Cars and Coffee or any of the car shows I've done with it. People are constantly rolling up on this because they want to take a look at it, because they've heard about it. I've talked with a number of people that said they'd heard about the car, but they'd never seen one in person. And considering that there were only about roughly 4,000 of them that got imported here to the United States, that's not unusual. It's great talking with young people about the car, because at first blush they think it's a Lamborghini or a Ferrari, and it does have a kind of Lambo-ish shape if you look at the Lambos from the early 70s. But it's fun to show the younger generation that here's this iconic car, still looks fresh today, got this massive 351 Cleveland engine sitting mid-car, and it just freaks them out. And I just love the younger generation, you know, kind of getting to know what the car is. So it's an absolute joy to own. It's loud, it's fast, it handles really, really well. It drives like a 50-year-old car, but that's the fun of it. So I don't know, this is number 2811 in the history of De Tomaso Panteras. And I got to tell you, I love this thing, and I'm not giving it up. So even though I got a list of guys that have already told me they want to buy it from me, it's not for sale. So I'm going to hold on to this one. So this is my 1972 De Tomaso Pantera. I know that we're going to show you some of the other parts of the car as well. But that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Let's go for a ride. Ready to rock?
Yep.
Rev limiter. What do you think?
That's amazing.
Let's do one more good pull. Nothing beats a big fat V8.
Nothing in this world.